Hello, and welcome to One Spark Stories, the podcast where innovators, creators, and some unsuspecting risk takers share about navigating highs and lows, laughter and tears, and how sometimes all it takes is one spark of inspiration to find your way to happiness. This podcast will leave you inspired to take action on your own purpose as we connect, create, and celebrate unique sparks around the globe, once again proving that it is a small world after all. So, you know that saying, you haven't actually been trained until you've been trained by the magical dude? No, you don't know that? Okay, so to be fair, I did just make that up, but it's because it's true. Lee Kitchen brings creativity and innovation to unbelievable heights for even those that aren't really sure that they have that creative side. Could not be more excited to get him on the podcast to share his mindset around how we can all harness that creativity and share his tidbits on what others need to take away from that misunderstanding and connotation of what creativity is and isn't. So, without further rambling, let's get on with the show. Hello, Lee Kitchen. How are you?
I am great. Super excited to be here. I've been watching a lot, and I've been like really jealous that all my friends get to come to be on this podcast. So now feel like I'm part of the cool crowd now.
I mean, you've made it, Lee. You've made it to the really One Spark Story. I feel equally excited to have the magical dude. You are now with us. So welcome. Can you give a very quick run through, and we'll dig deeper into all that you do, but just a quick overview for people. Who are you?
Yeah, sure.
What should we know about Lee Kitchen?
So my name is Lee Kitchen, and I am a magical dude. But I basically gave myself that name because I worked at Disney for 32 years. So it was the only professional job I have until my consulting business now. So before that, I worked at a car wash and a video store. That kind of shows you how old I am, right? And my last 10 years at Disney, I had a bunch of great jobs at Disney. I started in attractions. I worked in guest relations. I got to wear plaid for about 4 years. And then basically the rest of my career there was in marketing. I worked for special events. I worked for brand management and strategy. I worked for Disney Cruise Line for a while. Oh, that was so great. And then my last 10 years, I was an innovation catalyst with both the Alliance marketing team and Yellow Shoes Creative Group, which is the group that does all the advertising. And so I learned this great process called design thinking and creative problem solving as a discipline. And I went around with my colleagues around the world to not only teach people how to be more creative and how to think more creatively and be more innovative on a daily basis, but also I helped them on their challenges. So I conducted brainstorms and facilitation sessions for all different kinds of departments and groups all around Disney. And it was such a pleasure because I got to meet so many people and make so many friends in so many different places. It was a really sexy job. And then I left Disney in 2017, started my own business, Magical Dude Consulting. And now I help all kinds of different companies do the same thing, think about their challenges differently. I kind of train and deputize them to be more creative on a daily basis and kind of instill that culture of creativity, if you will, within their business. And I'm a keynote speaker and a workshop and trainer, and I love it. It's the best gig I've ever had. Again, I get to go around the world showcasing it. I have some of the greatest clients. My clients are so awesome. And you know as well as I do that when you get to this consulting part, after a while you get to kind of choose your clients. You don't have to work for clients that you don't want to anymore, it's really a dream come true. So I
love that you spent all that time at Disney. You could have hung up your hat and been like, wow, what a ride. And yet you've got as much energy as ever. And having gotten to experience time with you, doing a workshop, oh my gosh, Lee, please, for the sake of the world, don't stop as long as you can.
I always tell people I'm basically perpetually 12 years old. So I have the enthusiasm of a teenager all the time, and it's never gone away. And that's why I try not to, I didn't drink coffee this morning specifically because I knew I'd be so excited to talk to you. I'd be like, blah, 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 blah. Actually, my good friend Emily Nichols gave me, you met Emily at one of the perch things. She gave me this bracelet a while back, and it reminds me to slow the heck down. because
I
I'm
love
just so
it.
excited. I just can't contain myself half the time. So, and
I love
I married an introvert. My lovely wife Sarah is introverted, and so after a while, she needs introverted time. So I have to actually shut the office door so I don't bombard her with like that all the time.
That's a very smart man
Yeah, it's
because
good balance. It's good
you
balance.
acknowledge that that time is important. Well,
Also, she lets me sleep in sometimes, so that gives her the alone time that she needs,
yeah,
which is a win-win
that's a
if you
very
ask me,
smart move
right?
on her part. Well played, Sarah.
Yeah, perfect.
So I want to take it back then because we could talk about the 12-year-old mindset you have now, but I know at one point, I always would say this to kids I'd work with. I used to be a kid. So let's blow the world's mind. Lee, you used to be a kid. I want to dig back into young Lee and start the
Yeah,
conversation going with these couple rapid fire, learn about who you are and where you came from. So,
cool.
starting as a child, were you a creative kid? And if really, what do you say you found that creative outlet from? Was it
Well,
sports?
I
Was it
mean,
a toy? What did you do?
it was actually my first trip to Disneyland. When I was 6 years old, my grandparents took us. I grew up in Northern California in the San Francisco Bay Area, and my grandparents took us on a 7.5 hour drive to Anaheim. And I remember because I was so excited about going. I had heard about it, I had read about it. Of course, I watched The Wonderful World of Disney, all that stuff. And I got the jump seat in the station wagon. So as we got closer to Anaheim, I could hear my brother, Jay, who was up in the front part of the car, get excited because he saw the Matterhorn. And I couldn't see it yet. And I was like, ah. And I just remember the first time I went there, I was totally mesmerized. And I remember seeing these people in like suits with radios, and I'm like, I want to be that person. I just wanted to
Yeah.
be like in charge of something at the parks. And lucky for me, my grandfather who took me there, he was a big Disney fan, and so he would mail me articles about Disney and about Disney's plans for Epcot and things like that. And so as I was growing up, I had all this great influence from him, and I read about it. I watched the shows. I loved the movies. I remember being the only one in the theater in 1979 watching The Fox and the Hound, and I
Oh,
stayed and watched it a second time. Well, it wasn't 79, it was like 81, whatever it was.
yeah.
Super stoked. And I went on my first trip to Walt Disney World in 1983. It was right after Horizons opened. And Katie, you're going to be blown away. It was a world vacation, which means it was all inclusive. It included the room and included all the recreation. It was $2,000 for both my brother and I. $2,000 for tickets and everything for the week, and it definitely changed my life. And I couldn't wait to when we went to Epcot. I couldn't wait to wear the polyester costumes. Like I thought they looked so cool, right? Because they looked like they were out of Star Trek or something. So I would actually go to cast members. I'm like, "Do you mind if I take your picture?" And they thought I was really weird, but I'm like, "I just wanted a picture of the costume."
Okay, so Lee, now I have to, at some point, maybe I'll even share it when this goes. I actually have a page and a photo album of all the costumes I wore when I worked
Oh,
at Disney
nice.
because it felt so cool. Like, what
Yeah.
a way to be part of the show, right? Did rental, or I worked at Oscar Strollers and
Oh,
wore
yeah.
those pinstripe overalls. Oh my gosh, they were
Wow.
not uncomfortable. They were not comfortable, but I felt so cool. Like you
You
put it
felt
on and
cool.
you transition. And I think
Did
you
you work back
saw
in the day
that.
where the strollers were metal? Did you work during the
Yes,
metal
we
stroller days?
did.
Yeah,
And
I
they
used to
started
work. I worked at Magic
transition.
Kingdom for a while, and I worked at Small World, and man, it was a sea of strollers. And when those things hit your ankles, they hurt. It was the most pain, but you had to keep
Oh,
smiling, right? And that
oh
was just
yeah.
a, yeah,
And the
funny.
ECVs, the electric carts, people
Yep,
coming in hot on those,
ECVs,
that'll clip
nice.
an ankle real quick. So yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Well,
I enjoyed it.
then,
And even though they were polyester at Epcot, I still felt like I was from the future. And you're right, they weren't comfortable and they were really hot in Florida. But somehow that stuff didn't matter back then. I
no,
was just so excited. I couldn't believe I was getting paid to do what I was doing. Just saying hi to people all day long. And I love saying hi to people.
yes,
It was
yes.
wonderful.
That is so true. And first, I feel like I need to pour one out for Horizons. We need a moment of silence,
Oh
right?
yeah, don't worry. It's
Just
still in my heart. Horizons will always be in my
always,
heart. Yeah.
always.
And there
So
won't
when
be anything. It won't be anything like it anytime soon.
oh,
It was a classic. So
it was
yeah,
really something that, again, that innovation, that idea that it could
yeah,
take you somewhere that otherwise you couldn't experience. So
absolutely.
being a kid and seeing that firsthand, you had the support of your family members and being able to have that constant reminder.
Yeah.
What would you do as a kid? From that moment on, were there certain things that you said, okay, I know I want to work there? Were the little things over time that you remember as a kid being so focused on that Disney
Yeah.
destination?
Yeah, I remember the attention to detail part was really important to me.
Mm.
So like if you went into my room, which was painted bright yellow by the way, I had a shelf that was dedicated to Disneyland and to Walt Disney World and to the movies. And when my parents were very socialites, they'd have parties all the time, which another piece of
Oh,
the puzzle
wow,
falls
what a
into place, right?
surprise. Like,
Yeah, my dad was the president of a marine accessory company, and so he always hosted his clients and hosted people, and so constant party at my house. And I would always take a little tape deck and put it behind that shelf to play ongoing Disney music. So I had BGM, which we call Disney background music. Coming into my room, there was
oh my
BGM,
gosh,
right? So like,
it's
and
awesome.
I arranged everything like perfectly where it kind of told the story, and that attention to detail has always been a really important thing to me. And I actually do a workshop that's called Party Your Way to Great Ideas, and it talks about how important it is to keep that detail when you're inviting people to a brainstorm as well as hosting a party. And that was one of the things I really loved about what Disney did. It was like they went to such great lengths to tell that story. And I from that point on, like after I was 12, 13, and went into high school, my singular focus was the day I graduated, because the day I graduated, the day after was the day I turned 18. The day after that, I was getting in my truck and I was moving to Florida, and I really did that. I graduated high school and I loaded up my truck and I drove 3,500 miles away and started my gig. I actually came and got the job a month beforehand in May, and I told them I'd be back in a couple months. But it was when I arrived there, like I said, I couldn't believe I was getting paid to do this, right?
Yes. And I love that you still have that passion because especially after all the ups and downs, any job, working for Disney is not without the pain points. We
Of
all
course,
have
yes, of
them. But
course.
when you are so intentional, it helps remind you why you're there. And
It
Disney's a
does.
very purpose driven company. When
Yeah.
you started your career at Disney, were there any people that maybe you were able to connect with and look to as leaders that helped really define that path for you into innovation, even more so than just
Yeah.
the early start in attractions and making those moments for people?
Absolutely, and when I remembered about that is the leadership and the people that you worked with was very cyclical at Disney. So
Mm.
you would work with the same group of people for 6 months to a year, and all of a sudden everything would switch around. You get a new leader, you get someone new coming in, and it was all different. And I just remember having two or three leaders. I had a leader named Bob who was from Procter and Gamble, and I was always iffy about when I worked for the strategy team. I was always iffy about outsiders coming in because I felt that I had seen so many, these really educated people from all the top schools come in, and they really were just putting it on a resume. They had no passion for the product, and they would come in, they would kind of move everything around to suit their needs, and then they'd end up leaving after a year, right? And so I went through a lot of that. So here comes this guy Bob, and he was from Procter and Gamble, and I just remember how he used to explain how unemotional it was to sell a Tide, and how we at Disney were so lucky because we get people by the emotion, right? It's an emotional connection people have to the Disney brand and the Disney product. And I just thought that was really unique that he kind of separated the two. And I commended him because I think he actually went back to Procter & Gamble, and he was the one responsible for the campaign that transformed the Olympics to celebrating moms and all of the
Yes.
things that moms do to bring up. And I was like, they finally made
Gives
an
me chills.
emotional
I remember
connection.
that.
Yeah, they made an
Yeah.
emotional connection to
Yeah.
products, to soap, and to things like that. And
Yes.
it was from that Disney experience that they were able to do that. And I just that to me was really inspiring. And I remember I remember working for special events was a treat, right? Because special events basically were we did a lot of launch events for new attractions and things like that. And you would get in this room with the Imagineers and the creative entertainment folks, and they would explain, I mean, the way they would explain what was going to happen at the event, they were waving their arms and, things are going to happen here and explosions here and fun stuff here. And you were like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see this event. And you know what, Katie? Every time you went to those events, it was exactly as my mind's eye saw it as they explained it. And down to like the level that this flyby was going to happen above the
Yeah.
Magic Kingdom. And it was just like mind blowing how good just the Disney event machine is like an eighth wonder of the world, really.
Yeah.
You know, it's like
Yes.
watching them do what they do and pull off what we pull off and work as a team to get it done. Nothing short of amazing. I did that for the opening of Shanghai, and it all was doom and gloom. It was like we're not gonna make it. We're not gonna make it. And man, we put it together and we made it. And it was just like, look at this. No one would even know the struggles that we have because it came out so good, right?
Yeah, and it's something to what we were talking about earlier, that whole fake it till you are it mindset. And that's
Right.
something that even Walt opening Disneyland, I remember hearing that first day, there was a lot that was not
Oh
done.
yeah, people were
But
sinking in the cement, right?
yeah, it was a wild day. But one of my favorite things was owning the fact that there were weeds around
Yeah,
the
the Latin
area.
names. Yeah,
And so now what do? We're going to put their names out and just
absolutely.
identify it. And so now
Yeah,
it
own it.
turns
Oh,
into
that's
part
what
of the
I'm saying. Just own it.
show.
Yep.
It's just fascinating. And not, I think for people like myself, that visionary mind, you yourself, you can see it. It's so easy to paint that picture. As a
Yeah.
vision caster, that's one thing I love to help people do is they tell me things and I can put it out there
Right.
in a way that makes sense. In your work, as you shift into the consulting piece, not every client sees it that way. Not
You're
every
correct.
person sees it that way. And so
Yeah.
for people like myself and you who are very enthusiastic about the creative space, that can be a challenge. What is something you have been able to help people unlearn with that,
Yeah.
that wall they put up toward the creative visions?
Yeah, I usually get I do get a lot of feedback early on about people feel that a lot of times what I do is of the fluffy nature. So I had one client refer to it as a tickle party, right? Because I'm gonna get everybody up to make them do trust falls and holding hands and all that kind of stuff. And so I actually own that now. I actually joke about it right at the beginning of a session to say, okay, we're gonna be holding hands a lot today, you all, and we're gonna be doing trust falls. And I say it in all seriousness, and everyone's like, are you kidding? Is he really gonna make us do that? I'm like, come on, I'm not gonna make you do that, right?
Right.
No, I think the biggest thing that I tell my clients is there is a leap of faith and a trust the process thing. And so I'm hoping by the time they get to me, they've spoken to other people who have seen me do my thing. And so hopefully they have a little bit of trust in the fact that I've worked with some other great companies before. So that's the first thing I say. And I run them through, an idea of kind of what the activity is going to be and what the outcome is going to be. But I don't actually show them how I get to that. And the biggest comment I get all the time is, you really undersold yourself, because what you were told me in the preview of this is not at all what I picture, but when you did it, it was mind blowing.
Yes.
So I get that a lot, and I hope that again that comes out, and when people refer me, they go like, hey, this guy is just got a magic about him, and you have to go for it, and you have to trust the process, and he will get you there, kind of thing. So a lot
Yes.
of clients won't buy it. A lot of clients they need to see more, and I'm happy to kind of tell them more, but they. If they don't have that kind of leap of faith, it's a difficult thing. Usually, it takes at least one small session to get them turned the other way, and then they're calling. They can't wait to book more.
Yeah, because they
Which is a
book the
luxury.
other.
It's a great luxury I have. So
Absolutely. And I think unfortunately what happens time and time again is that they won't see what you're going for. And so they'll stick with the bland, blase, traditional
yeah,
consulting model and get no change, no
yeah, absolutely,
innovation.
yeah.
And it's the same old, same old. So I
Or
think
they'll,
that,
or they'll get somebody who teaches them something, and then they come back to work on Monday, and they try to remember what they learned, and there's no
yeah,
stickiness to it, right?
yeah,
That's a huge thing for me, and I make sure after all my workshops, I'm like, if you don't try at least one of these things, and even in a small scale, you will forget this, and it will be a big waste of time. So try something, one thing, one little thing, and once that works, try something else right after it. And Katie, you've been through my stuff. It's
mm-hmm,
simple. It's not rocket science, as I say. It's really simple stuff. So just by enacting a different way to think, or by getting some different fresh input, or looking outside your organization, something like that, just do something
yeah.
small, and it'll lead to big things.
And Lee's not joking because we literally had Elvis, a part of our group, come helping provide insight. And I say that because you would just have to experience this to know what I mean. But
Yeah,
you really do force people to think in different ways, and there is power in that. But the next piece to it is something I think that is glossed over in your statement. You said how if they don't believe me, that's fine, but they'll hear, or I trust that they'll hear the good word. That connection, that's a huge piece of One
Definitely.
Spark, is connecting, creating, and celebrating. Do you find that your transition to entrepreneurship, doing your own consulting work, that the value of connections has been looked at a little differently for you, or
Oh,
where has that
absolutely.
really benefited the business for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because for the first 2 years, the majority of jobs and gigs that I got were referrals from really good Disney friends or partners who we had worked together before and now have moved on to other locations. So
Yeah.
that fed my funnel for the first 2 years. And then what happened is that once I got I always say my best gigs always lead to my best gigs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was lucky. I consider myself, I call myself kind of the Forrest Gump of entrepreneurship, because here I am just running along and all of a sudden I'm talking to the president of Taco Bell, right? Like, I don't
Isn't
know
it
how I
wild?
got there, but I mean, here I am, and Taco Bell is one of my main clients, and their CEO Mark, oh, my gosh, this guy walks the walk and talks the talk, and I love doing work for them because they take action on it, and it's just great.
Mm,
And from that, I was able to get 2 or 3 more gigs in some other departments because some folks left there, they went to another place, they called me up, and it was just it's the connection point. I think I told you this before, but I'm a collector and a connector. So I collect people along the way,
yeah.
right? And then I connect people who I think have could have make some magic together, kind of thing. And I love the fact that those connections basically, again, that's my livelihood.
Yeah.
My LinkedIn folks that I know, I probably know all of them personally. I know all of my Facebook friends personally, and I have a personal relationship with them. And anybody who
Yeah.
contacts me, I'm just so thankful because they thought of me, number one. But also,
Yes.
it's nice to have that, again, that connection, because I wouldn't have got that job without that referral, that connection. And when a job comes to you, when somebody who also does a great job in their work recommends you, that's
Mm,
priceless stuff, right? Here's
yeah.
a guy like Dan Cockwood. Dan's a great example. Dan has referred me to many jobs, and first of all, thank you, Dan, because you see how he's got such a great following, and he's a great person, and just to be associated with him is awesome. But then when he refers me, I'm like,
Yes.
wow, like I've got some really great gigs for him. But that's just I love that part, and I also do the same thing. If I can't do a job, I've got 6 other Innovation Catalyst friends that basically all left Disney all at the same time, and will refer them right behind me. We go back and forth. There's really no
Mm,
like competition. It's just we
yeah.
all have this great skill, and we're gonna take turns using it.
And I think that's an important piece that people don't acknowledge. Once you own what you love and that passion, the competition doesn't seem to exist anymore. You
No.
really are driving each other because that abundance mentality shows up. You realize
Yep.
that, okay, maybe Leek is working with Taco Bell, but there's still Arby's, there's still White
Yeah,
Castle,
right.
there's still 12 mom and pop like indie
Absolutely.
restaurants. Like, it doesn't mean that your
Yeah.
world is ending. And I think the more we celebrate each other and pull each other and up, that
Absolutely. Yes.
that
We're
experience
really
will
all in
grow.
this together. I don't mean to
Yeah.
quote High School Musical or anything, but we are all in this
Oh,
together.
please. Do we have
And
a
not that
dance
I can
break? Do
do
we
the
have a
dance
song break?
either. I
No.
won't talk about
Dang,
that.
Lee, I was all in. That's okay. Well, that'll push me into create, because I could say, well, let's create our own movement. If we're not going to dance, we'll do some, like,
Right.
I don't know, we'll just start vibing. Creating. You are a creative mind. We talked about your attractions experience at Disney. You had an early start in a place that is very near and dear, and I will bust out my ears for this
Nice, nice. Your
because,
figment ears.
oh
I
yeah,
love it.
One Spark is
Did you
all
wait?
built on
Well, I'm
that.
sorry. Did you wait in an all-day line for that, or was that just a
Oh
popcorn bucket?
no, I need to give. Oh gosh, no, I love popcorn, not a
That
popcorn
was crazy,
container
right?
that much. And thankfully, I was blissfully ignorant that day. I happened to be
Oh,
in the
good.
area and didn't.
Yeah,
No,
that was a
no.
good way to spend a whole entire afternoon, huh?
No,
Wow.
thank you. So these were made by my friend Kristen. She is a travel agent friend. She has her own little Etsy shop, and I will have to
Oh,
pop that
cute.
in the show notes just to give her a shout out. But
Yeah, please. They're
One
really cute.
Spark is based off of our friend Figment and his whole notion of one little spark of
Yep,
inspiration.
that's all you need.
So for you, what has you've worked in a lot of creative fields, so it might be hard to narrow it down. But what is that piece of creativity that you think is very misunderstood by people?
Very misunderstood. That's interesting. It's hard to say, but when I enact my own creativity, it's usually in the realm of music or imagery or things like that. So I'm like the photo curator of my family, right? And so I love doing
Yeah.
creative things with photos and things like that. I was really bummed when the whole photo album craze like left us because man, I used to do what I forget exactly what it was.
Scrapbooking.
Yeah,
Did
the
you
whole
have all
scrapbooking
the,
thing. Yeah,
oh, yeah.
I felt like I started scrapbooking like in the late '80s when no one was quite doing it yet. I didn't use the
Oh
special
my
paper or
gosh.
anything like
I'm
that,
going
but
to
that
send you
was
my cast member scrapbook and pictures, and you could
yeah.
do it for me. It's been in a bag
Yeah, I
since I
used to love it.
left.
I used to love doing that.
Oh,
But
that's cool.
I think one of the things that really sparked me was music has always been a really big passion of mine. When I was in high school, I was a huge Duran Duran fan, which shows you how old I am. And it was them who kind of got me out of my shell. And I used to dress like them and wear eye makeup and little skinny ties and the whole thing.
Love it.
But that music really drove my creativity. And I remember back in the day when I worked at Future World, when I first started, going to people's apartment parties, and they would just put on like one tape of one band all night long. And it was just like, dude, can we listen? I mean, nothing against Rush, but can we listen to something besides Rush, right? And so there was a time when I would actually bring my turntables and my record collection over to people's houses just because I was tired of crappy music at parties. And that
That's
basically it
excellent.
started my DJ craze. So all through the 90s, I was a wedding and party DJ. And if you ask a lot of people in either guest relations or attractions back in the mid 90s, I DJ their wedding. I still have a 95% success rate, which means I've only got like 2 or 3 divorces, which is awesome. Like, like
So,
I've
playlists
been to
from
over
those.
170 weddings now. And I gave it up because I was tired of lugging all the equipment around. Actually, I did my last wedding gig in 2007. But during COVID, I decided, I needed a creative outlet. And so I bought a DJ controller and I started playing music on Twitch, just pretty much for myself. No one really was listening. And all
That
of a
is
sudden,
fantastic.
in 3 months, I had 5 people listening. And then another 3 months, I had 8 people listening. And then a year and a half later, I've got an audience of about 20 to 30 people that join us every Friday night. And it's just a fun creative outlet for me because I love music. I love eclectic stuff. So during my broadcast, you'll hear anything from Indian music mixed with dubstep, mixed with techno, mixed with country. Like I mix all the genres together, and it basically supports my. I always think that you need to get fresh thinking in order to think creatively. So you need to get outside your comfort zone. So when I tell people when they come listen, even if you don't like the genre of music, power through it and try to get into it anyway, right? I always say dance
Yeah.
like nobody's watching. So
Yes.
yeah,
I
so
That is really cool because you've taken something that you love, and what I might throw on a billboard and put on repeat is your statement that I started with this many and then and I'm up to 20 people that listen and tune in on Friday night. The excitement that you have for people tuning into something you love is so much more important than that number, because I guarantee
absolutely.
you there are plenty of people that would be hung up and be like, I don't have all my followers. I need thousands of
No.
followers. You need your followers. You need
Yeah,
your people that are willing to enjoy your craft. And so thank you for sharing that, because
you got it.
we are in such a numbers game. And as a person that's never liked numbers, especially when they sit next to letters, like that's the point math
Yeah.
lost me. But I think that we don't value enough the people that do enjoy that creative
Absolutely.
outlet we
And
offer.
that's really important to us. I do a once a month innovation and creativity broadcast too. We call it the Inspiration Report, and we have about 25 to 35 people. Sometimes we have 60. But the people that show up are passionate. They get involved in the chat, and that's what we want. We
Yeah.
actually, my good buddy Sean and I, we don't actually rehearse the content. We look at the content, but we just basically have a conversation, and we invite everybody else to have a conversation with us. And I think that's part that speaks to the community part of it. It's to me those things are more about community, right? It's
Yes.
more about getting these people together and having them be your creativity sidekicks, right? We all need them. So and
Yes.
looking to those community. I mean, you and I belong to Dan's community of the Perch, And that has enriched my life so much because it's just a bunch of people seeking to learn and be
Yes.
better. And it's nice to like be around like-minded people. I'm reminded of when I transferred to Disney Cruise Line. It was in the early 2000s. Before that, I worked for the strategy department of Walt Disney World. And like I said, there were a lot of folks, outsiders, that weren't like Disney fans that worked there. And I felt like I was the only one that was as passionate about the product. When I went to work for Disney Cruise Line, my goodness, every single cast member at Disney Cruise Line was so passionate about their particular role in the show and also the entire product. It
Yes.
was so refreshing to work with people that were equally as hyped about it as I was. And so to be with a community like the people at the Perch, everybody there is super excited about absorbing and learning information, and it's
Yeah.
just so refreshing to be around that kind of community. There's a lot of negativity, and in the workplace, you get a lot of these naysayers and stuff like that. And I really try to not surround myself with them. So surrounding myself with the people at on my Friday night community, at Inspiration Report, the Perchians, I feed so much off of that because I just love everybody's passion. Right? It's
Yeah.
it's a great thing, and also we're the ones making the world a better place. Right?
That's the
There's
truth.
other people
Say
out
it
there that all
again.
they do is post negativity and complaining, and we're like trying to make ourselves better so we can help make other people better.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Because we're
I love
tired of
being a part
hearing
of
your
that.
negativity.
Yeah, yeah, I love being a part of that because to me, I think that you can change the world one person at a time. And if I have a little bit, if I have a chance to do that, I feel really honored to do that because you know, and it doesn't have to be a child. Teachers do that every day, right? That's their thing. You can transform an adult just as easy.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of us as adults, I was telling you, I've had a renaissance at 50 years old, right? I lost the two most important things in my life at the time, and I had to find my way out of it. And I could have very well just stuck with the negative, but I decided no, that's not me. I have to rethink what I'm doing, and I felt like having that renaissance really led me to who I am today. And it was
Yeah.
just, if you and I can help those people that are going through that, then let's do it, right? I feel
Yes.
like Katie, I always say I have a gift and I can't keep it to myself. I've got to share it, right? I don't want to be selfish. I want to impart this stuff to people to see where it goes. It might not
Yes.
work, right? It might not work. Sometimes it doesn't, but as much as I can do to help them out, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, because hard days will come and they'll come for me, they'll come for you.
Yeah.
They are inevitable. But
Yeah.
the more that we face them, we feel them, and then we move forward, the more that I don't want to call it resiliency because, it still stinks, it still hurts, it still leaves a mark, but you
Yep.
start to
Yep.
recognize that there is a light and you might not know what that light is, but
Yeah.
there is something coming out of it that you have the opportunity to grab. So embracing
Absolutely.
that spark and saying, this is what I
Yep.
can pivot to now, it's incredibly powerful. So if we can
And
get
there's no
out
shame
there
in
and
using
help.
a community to help you. That's why you get
Yes.
into communities, and it takes a village, right? And it's really nice to be a part of a couple. I'm part of some of the best communities. Like the Perch, well, number one, great community. I'm part of an entire community of creativity people through a guy named Tim Herson and a conference that's called Mind Camp that's held up
Yeah.
in Toronto, also where I met my wife Sarah. Awesome place.
Hey. And where
But
we
I
have a
mean,
mutual friend, Katie Gary. Should we give Katie a
yes,
shout out? Hey, Katie.
absolutely. No, but I wouldn't be how I am without those. I mean, those people really lifted me
Yeah.
up and taught me the things that I know and really made me what I am. So there's no shame. You don't have to go this alone. That's one of the things I preach constantly in my workshops is collaboration is so important. And I know you have really great ideas, but if you bounce that idea off your best buddy or your spouse or somebody, you can still build it and it'll be better. Working together
Yeah.
is an essential thing for us to solve the world's problems. So let's do
Yes.
this.
Being involved in communities where, there are similar thoughts is not a bad thing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
important to have diverse thought. By all means, that's not what I want to dismiss. But too often we think that, oh, we can only have one creative, we can only have one
Yeah.
skilled trade, we can only have one of this. No,
No, there's no right answer. There's no
that's
right
not
answer.
how we are a community, people thrive on the human experience, and they want to
Absolutely.
be seen and felt and heard. And so when you find that community, it's really okay to shed all the ones that were like dead weight to you,
Yeah,
because the
absolutely.
minute I
Yes.
did,
As
it
soon as
it
possible.
felt like the world opened up.
Yes.
It's amazing that
Yeah.
we hold ourselves to these outdated mindsets of, well, this is what'll get me ahead because it worked for them 20
Well,
years
it's
ago.
hard not to because your parents told you that's what you should do, and their parents told them that's what they should do. But it's really important that you do what is right for you, right?
Yes.
I
Yeah. And we've
actually,
gone through a cultural renaissance the last few years.
yes.
Things are very different.
Absolutely. I remember doing an empathy thing at Disney when we went to interview some abstract folks for the challenge that we were working on. And we interviewed this family therapist, and we were asking them about what struggles families are having these days. And one of the things that she said was, a lot of families struggle trying to set their lives up like their parents would. So instead of setting their lives up that works for them, they're trying to do something that their parents would do or their grandparents would do. And it's like, it's hard to live like that. You have to live for your own circumstances, and you can still keep a foot in the past and honor those people, but you might not be able to live like that because it's not for you. So
Yes.
you got to realize the truth within yourself and follow it.
Yeah. And when
It
your
takes a while
family
though.
initially bristles, they'll be okay when they see that you're able to do it. It's just
Yeah.
different. And it's hard for people to see that things can be done differently when they've never done it. So
Yeah, it really is.
it's
That's
it,
why I'm here to help.
that's what I was gonna say. And that's what the creatives are
Good leading. Thanks for
for.
the lead back.
Yes, yes. So I want to make sure that we hit that third pillar of One Spark. We've hit connect, we've hit the creative, and now to celebrate. And I could certainly celebrate that you were part of that early years of Figment. I mean, goodness, the Dreamfinder and Figment connection,
Yes.
guys. I'm 1 degree away. We do two. What would this be considered?
I think I'm
Facebook,
gonna have
we're
to
best
send you that.
friends.
If I'm gonna have to send you the picture of me and Dreamfinder and Figment in my imagination costume, so you can post that
Beautiful.
too.
We'll do a side by side of me a few years later
Yeah.
with them. But you've embraced that moment as a kid and said, this is my life that feels right, and you've made it yours. So I want to celebrate that you owned it, and you still are owning it, and you're helping others find it throughout this secondary career that you are
Yeah.
building. But I want to flip the script to you, because too often we don't acknowledge the things that we do well. We let other people give us accolades. We try to hope they're nice to us. And
Yep.
but what, Lee, if you were able to congratulate yourself and celebrate yourself, what is something that you think you're really proud of that you've been able to build or do or have happen in
Yeah,
your life?
when you say celebration, the first thing I thought of was I would celebrate the way I celebrate. So
Mm,
celebrating to me is really important, and you don't have to wait for a big milestone moment to do it.
yeah.
So and I constantly want to, like, on Friday nights we stop the show in the middle of the broadcast and we have shot o'clock, which basically we toast all the good news for the week, right? And if we need to shed any negativity, we're shedding that negativity and we're toasting to a good week. I'm always a big proponent of just stopping to celebrate and stopping to smell the roses, because man, we're so busy all the time going from place to place. And, I always say my calendar at Disney used to look like a UPC barcode if you turn it on the side,
No.
right? And there was never any
Yeah.
time to
Yeah.
use the facilities between meetings and stuff. So when the opportunity came to after work to go celebrate with your coworkers down at the pub, definitely doing that, right? Anytime I do a session, I usually say to my clients, I'm like, you should probably plan an hour of socializing time afterwards. Again, just so we can talk about what we did
Yeah.
and we can celebrate what we did. It's really important to stop and do that, and at any level. And also, like we were talking about the past, I always celebrate. Anytime I go and play golf, my father's not with us anymore, but when I go and play golf, we definitely celebrate my dad by making jokes, by having a beer or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
it's just any given time. It doesn't have to be official. It doesn't have to be an official party or something like that. You can stop and celebrate. There's a
Yes.
tradition, Kitty, you're gonna love this. There's a tradition at my house. I live with my son and daughter-in-law in Florida, and soon to be moving in with my wife in Canada, which is awesome.
Ta-da!
But there's a tradition in our house that anytime you hear a cork pop, like if we pop a champagne cork or a wine cork, wherever you are in the house, you go "Ayo!" like that. So it's that signal saying we're celebrating
Yes.
anytime a cork is popped. So
Uh, from a young age, my kids always knew that afternoons in the summer when we'd be up at the lake, we'd have happy hour. Now, obviously, as young kids, we're not pouring beverages, but we would set out, we'd make like all the hors d'oeuvres, set out a cheese plate
Yeah, it
because
was a
it
big
was a
deal.
sign to bring everybody together and
Yeah.
connect. And to this day, they're like, can we have happy hour? And we're like, you know what? Yes, because people in our family gather around food. And it's a way
Absolutely. It's what every
to,
family gather around food. There's
I
another
would
notion,
hope.
Katie, that you might do that I would recommend if you don't already do it. And this was a new notion to my wife's family that they didn't do it, but in the kitchen family, we call ourselves the kitchen cluster because my brother has 6 kids, all about millennial age, 25 to 35. I have 2 kids about the same age, and when we all get together, it's just a crazy cluster, right? But what we normally do is we always do the debrief. So after any big occasion, there's always the morning after breakfast or brunch or whatever, where we all talked about what happened, right, and the things that happened. So and the debrief is really important. And Sarah hadn't done that before, and I was like, hey, after something like, oh, aren't we going to schedule debrief time? And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, we got to talk about what happened, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
celebrate what happened and stuff like that. So I highly recommend that the after party basically.
Yes, I that's perfect. I come from two big families, and one side in particular always loved to have that big event, big plan, this
Yep.
full spread on the dining room. And Christmas was our thing. I mean, that
Yep.
was top to bottom, the
Absolutely. Yeah.
experience. And it's now brought into our daily life. And while our families aren't as large anymore, those are the experiences that now I want to bring to others that you've
Definitely.
recognized the value in. And so celebration doesn't have to be over the top. Thing I would celebrate
No.
for you is
Popping a
that,
cork.
yeah, even when we were on that recent trip and you and Sarah got out there and you were salsa dancing and living your best life without much of a
Absolutely.
crowd, but it didn't matter. It
No.
didn't matter. You all were
Hey,
in your
dance like
element.
nobody's
And so
watching. It works.
yes, it was beautiful. And it seriously just is, it's inspiring more people around you. So to everybody, that's all we can do is live our best life because
Yeah.
that's what gets other people jazzed. So
Yeah,
thank you.
and celebrate.
Yes,
You know what? Don't ever let a moment go by that needs to be celebrated, not celebrated. Even if it's just a cheer or a wink or great job. After every workshop that I do, and I mean it's different in COVID times. I usually do elbows, but I actively tell people to stand up and high five each other and tell them how great they are. I'm like walk around, mingle around this room, and tell each and every person what a great job they did. Give them a high five or
yes.
an elbow, and we'll let's celebrate. Right?
My
And it
classroom,
takes
yes.
2 minutes. It's not like this big time frame. It takes 2 minutes to do something little like that. So let's do this.
Yes. My students always knew when you walk in the class, it's a handshake, high five, or hug. And most
Yeah,
days it was a hug, and I
that's.
missed
I
that.
mean,
But
it's important
it's
stuff.
connection. And even that little hand bump that set the day, it set the
Yeah,
tone.
agreed.
So
Agreed.
awesome. Well, Lee, where can people connect with you? Because I could sit here and yeah, we could keep going on and on, but I want people to make sure that they can also build that relationship with you.
Okay, well, I'd love to invite all your listeners to join my 2 live streams. One is called the Inspiration Report. It's the first Friday of every month. It's from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and it's on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/LeebyXLT. And then every Friday night, of course, is Beats Party Magic. Myself and Pickles Beats, Sarah, my wife, she's our great chat moderator, and it's from 9 to 11 Eastern Time. And just come in with an open mind. Do put it on the loudest speakers that you have in your home. Crank it up, and again, dance like no one's watching. We
Yes.
do a lot of eclectic mixes, and it's just a fun dance party. If you can't get out to your local nightclub, this is the thing to do, right?
Yes.
And
Or
of
set it
course,
as your background music, right? Like your old school Disney back in.
yeah.
Back in.
Actually, I did a movie night. I did a movie night the other movie theme night, and I started with a mix of all of the different movie house intros, and the Disney one was one of them. And
That's
it's
awesome.
all familiar stuff, right?
Very cool.
And then of course my website is magicaldude.com. So please check that out, and then please connect with me on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/Lee Kitchen. So. I would love
Excellent.
to connect with your listeners, and I love your show. I love all the people that you have on your show. They're all my idols. Trust me. You and you've interviewed some really great people. Goodness.
I
And on
am
the cruise ship, like one of them was on a cruise ship. So
it's
come on.
hey, creature of curiosity. That's my nature. If I'm curious, I'm going to ask. And what not enough people realize is when you ask, people usually say yes because
Yeah.
they're not scary. They're not.
Right.
You're not a scary person. You're just a person. And so when you're curious about somebody and want to learn more and lean into it authentically,
Definitely.
it's beautiful. I'm curious. I used to call it nosy. Now it sounds classy to say curious. So the podcast is working so well.
I mean, nosy. I'm not judging.
Thank you so much, Lee. And I appreciate you and certainly hope others can find the fun in the Friday night.
Yeah, please. I
Yeah.
love it. And thank you so much for having me on here, Katie. It's a really great show and keep inspiring people. You're doing an
Thank
awesome
you.
job. Keep
Thank you.
sparking. You got to have that spark to
Yes.
get to that innovative thing. So one little spark is perfect. Love it.
I love it. Keep our sparks ignited. Thank you
Yep.
so much, Lee.
Thank you.
He reminded me why I am working through the mess of entrepreneurship, I'll say. It's because there is something that draws that creative spirit. Being able to help others tap into it themselves and find that spark that they otherwise wouldn't have. So I'd love for you to share what feedback you have, what really resonated with you from this conversation. For me, when he talked about the excitement of his 20 people, his loyal fans on his Friday night DJ party, that spoke volumes because we get so watered down in the numbers nonsense. Instead of worrying about being a voice for many, be that person that can draw in the people that are aligned with your message, your passion, your heart. It's really okay. When you rate and review this show, make sure you capture that favorite moment from this episode because there is no doubt that it resonated with you in some way, maybe different than it did with me. So, keep being creative, ignite that innovative spirit that you have. Be well, stay curious, and we'll see you real soon.
Fun fact, you're most creative when you're bored. Wowee.
Later, Tater.